Welcome. So this engine here has 176,000 miles on it with low compression in either cylinder 2 or 3. We were replacing this engine for a customer and we got 3 bad ones from the junkyard in a row, so we're going to be building him a new one. I need a couple of parts out of the inside of this engine, so I figured this would be a good time to do a teardown and kind of show why these engines fail, because it's usually the same thing every time, which is piston ring failure. So I'm going to set up a time lapse and I'm just going to tear this thing down. I don't need a lot of it. I need the timing cover. I need the water pump housing, and then nothing off the head except for the high pressure fuel pump that we need. Turbocharger's junk. The head's most likely junk. We're going to test it, but it's most likely junk. But you see all that discoloration on the cylinder wall? And now the cross hatching isn't at that spot. Yeah, that's not good. So this block is definitely junk. If you look in this sleeve, it's not really all the way around, but it's definitely worn out. And then there's a very slight lip buildup, which is fairly normal. But yeah, this thing is definitely tired. It's a lot of miles on it. I didn't clean out these other 2 cylinders just because the dead one is one of these 2. I just forget which. So that's what's looking like it did it. And from the top, eyeballing it, that doesn't look round anymore. So the piston is probably dragging on the cylinder wall, which is what's causing that. It kind of has it on this side, but not anywhere near as much as that side. So, yep, well, that'll do it. So, we got to get the lower pan off this housing and then pull the crank and pistons and rods out of this, make sure everything looks good and reusable. I'm going to clean up my mess in here first because I kind of tore this thing down really fast. So, you know, I got cylinder head there, parts in there, parts over there. So I'm going to clean this mess up and then we'll get back to this in a little bit. So I actually kept poking around and I put the cylinders down and look how bad that one is. That's very shiny. All right, so I got this thing flipped over. We're going to go ahead and take the pans off, and then we're going to get the pistons and rods out, check everything out, make sure that that stuff's reusable, make sure the crank is in good shape, and then hopefully get everything down to the machine shop in a couple days. Santa's holding the lighter. My parents are both liars. I got gifts. All right, so I got this all torn down. All the rods feel good. There's no weird play in anything. This engine was not very well maintained by the previous owner. So if we come down here and look at, spilled a little. So if you come down here, look at this. It's very stained, and then this is the oil pump, and that is not usually that golden color. I've pulled apart engines with 120, 130,000 miles before, and the insides of them usually look almost brand new if they're well maintained. So like this will come out looking aluminum like it is, and in this case it didn't. So not really surprised what we're finding in here, but there's no obvious heat marks on any of the rod caps, which means we don't have any bearings that we're getting hot or smushed, and there's no play, obviously. It spins smooth, so that's good. So this is probably going to be a good crank to reuse. Pistons and rods are probably going to be okay. The pistons are the only thing that concern me at this point. Just want to make sure that they're not like completely worn down on the sides, the skirts, which is what would cause that loss of the cross hatching on the cylinders. So I'm gonna pull the rest of this out and take a peek.
Subscribers, thanks for the candy basket. Oh God, another jacket. My stocking's filled with.
All right, so this is everything that we pulled out of the engine, and the pistons aren't looking good. So the material on the sides wearing off, that's normal, especially with this mileage. The problem I have is that there's, like, I can feel that, and that's in 3 of them. And then on this one, which I think is the one that didn't have any compression, which was cylinder 3, notice how this side's barely worn down, and this side's very worn down. That's not good. Like, you see how much is missing off this one. Flip this over. This chunk's missing off that. That's not good. And then, well, actually, now's a good time to bring that up. This had a fresh oil change right before it came up to us. And the oil that's coming out of there is just sludge. So the good news is the rods are fine. They're all straight from what I can see. The bearing wear is okay. So some new bearings, that'll be good to go. Our crank, aside from being really stained, looks good to go, reusable. Same with the cams. I don't see any weird wear on them. So aside from the staining, those are good to go too. So I might have to hunt down another set of pistons for this. I have some stock pistons, but I need them for something. They're also not all the same. So like, that's a stock piston, that's a stock piston, that's a stock piston, but they're all marked underneath because they're out of different MRs, but they're all the same. But that's a whole other video I'm working on. So gonna have to hunt down some pistons for this, I think, at the least. Missing that coating isn't a big deal. I'd like to point out that Nissan advertises that the Nismo RS comes with that special coating. This is not a Nismo RS. I digress. So yeah, we're probably going to get some pistons for it. I mean, you can just see how, like, the camera's like making it look shiny for some reason, but this stuff is just dark and sludgy and stained. So I'm surprised this engine lasted as long as it did, especially with the skirts looking like that.
Like and subscribe, guys.